Imagine for a moment having a thriving business in the perfect location and overnight watching everything collapse due to unforeseen economic turmoil. What would you do? How resilient are you in the face of such unexpected challenges? Our guest this week is Bryan Durkin, founder and CEO of MVP Team and author and host of the Driveway Marketing Podcast. Bryan has journeyed through these entrepreneurial highs and lows, from creating and selling a successful business to real estate investment challenges, and ultimately finding his voice in sales and marketing. We'll dive into his journey from a young entrepreneur to a successful business leader. We'll explore his insights on business scaling, the importance of systems, and how his self-published book became a powerful tool in his consulting arsenal. Bryan will also discuss his approach to the ready, fire, aim mentality in entrepreneurship, the significance of effective communication in business, and how his mastermind group's accountability propelled his success. Get ready for valuable lessons on scaling businesses, managing virtual teams, and enhancing customer service. As always, if you found value from this content, please like and subscribe. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Fulfillment Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Goulas. This week, my guest is the founder and the CEO of MVP Team Pro, author, and podcast host, Bryan Durkin.
Hey,
Welcome,
everyone.
Bryan.
How's it going? Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, going great. Going great. Thank you so much for being here. So Bryan, you've had a 27-year entrepreneurial career, lots of twists and turns. Can you just take us back from the beginning and tell us how it all got started?
So, like a lot of entrepreneurs, it kind of starts when you're young. At least a lot of people I know. I always felt like sales and selling was second nature to me. And people go, "Well, what is it?" Because it's so natural for you. It's always so hard for me. And I go, "Well, I don't really even think about it because it's like walking or riding a bike." And then I go back to I was like, 10 years old, and neighbor and I would sell literally like his dad was a Hallmark salesman. And so we had a deal that if we sold whatever he sold that were samples, we could keep, I don't know, half of it or 3/4 or whatever it was. And so I was like 10 years old, and I go out like on a, 2 weeks for Mother's Day, and I was making like $200 like walking around the neighborhood. I'm like, this is like real money. So this is easy. So I learned at an early age, if you help people solve problems and you can sell them stuff, you can make some bank. And so I always that was kind of that was my background, how I got started. Right. And then, like a lot of us that went to college, we got our first jobs, and then we started looking at what was happening in the marketplace. And you kind of go, well, geez, I could do this for myself and make way more money. So I was in my 20s. I was in my early 20s. I ended up starting a division of a consulting company that was I ran it, and I had P&L responsibility, and did that for a couple of years. It kind of went its way. And I went and worked for some big companies selling really big stuff. I was in my mid-20s selling, $20-30 million a year to the Fortune 100 companies. A lot of Fortune 5 companies were my clients. Really lucky, had some great experiences. And then, of course, I went back on my own. Said, hey, I could do a better job myself. And that was back in the mid-90s to early 2000s. I sold my business in 2004. I sold my interests in my document management company. Then I basically picked up my family, relocated to Florida. And then about every 18 months, I reinvent myself. So I'm the classical entrepreneur's entrepreneur. People go, what do you do? And I say, that's a really interesting question, right? But the commonality is that, as we talked about before the call, is, I've really been successful, I think, because I've just been able to talk to people and help solve problems. So as things have gone, now sometimes we don't make profits, or the model doesn't scale, or quite honestly, I don't want to do it anymore. But it's this evolution of like talking to people, understanding what they're trying to do, and then figuring out how you can solve it. Like I love being an inventor of solving business problems as it relates to marketing and sales, so that people that are not good at it, a lot of them, can have a better chance of kind of growing and scaling their business. So that's really, so helping people grow and scale is kind of my bread and butter. So been for a long time.
Okay. Yeah, and I love that distinction too, where you boil down the essence of sales and business to just helping people solve their problems. Right.
That's all it is, right? Yeah, because people think it's like, now I understand with funnels and technologies and stuff like that, there's a different, the process is different, but the methods behind it are still the same. Identify a need, get someone to make a decision, hopefully they buy from you, right? And in a funnel that might be a minute or 3 minutes, but in a long sales cycle for a $10 million product, it might be 3 months or 6 months or even longer. But the
Sure.
process is the same stuff, right? So people don't realize like it's just the same stuff.
Attention Shopify sellers. Are you tired of slow sales? Do you want to skyrocket your revenue? Well, you'll want to join this free masterclass from my friends, the Traffic Ninjas. Learn how to optimize your store, boost conversions, and dominate your niche. Sign up with the link in the show notes and take your Shopify business to the next level. Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to that first company that you built and sold. That was over the course of what, 7 years?
7 years. So we started it while I was working for another company. It was a side hustle before side hustles were a thing. Sorry, I didn't know that was a thing, because now we all have side hustles. It was a side gig. I had a partner who was in a different industry, and I was like, "You're crazy. There's got to be a technological way to handle this." He was in the document management business, and so like you're driving around all over the metropolitan New York area delivering files. There's got to be a better way. So we created a scan on demand portal in 97, 98. We were scanning files and then delivering them electronically to doctors and lawyers all over the metro area of New York City, and did that for a year or two. And then we ended up falling into a niche where we were servicing larger companies, but we couldn't afford, not that we couldn't afford, we just couldn't get the documents processed fast enough. So I met someone who was doing the work at the time in India. And so it allowed us to go from 2 employees in the US to, I think, 24, 25 employees in like 2.5 years. And then I had a staff of over 200 of them doing the data entry work for us overseas in India back in 98, 99, 2000. And we rocked and rolled. We would do, I think when I left, we were doing about 300,000 documents processed a day. Like, that's crazy, right? So like, it's just so, and what did we do? We stuck to it. We got good at doing simple things simply, and just, we were in the pennies business, but we would do, a couple 100,000 pennies a day. It certainly adds up.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, keeping it simple, right? Not trying to branch out too much, just staying focused on your core competency. You think that's why you scaled so quickly?
I think that, and I was really, well, luckily, it's all people thing, right? I was an idea guy, but I learned that I didn't have a right-hand man to kind of see that vision to fruition. So I very kind of early on kept breaking the system, and I brought in an operations partner, and he was fantastic. I key him with most of what we were able to do. I was able to sell it, but he was able to make sure we could deliver it. So when you're in any kind of, that's also another kind of entrepreneurial conundrum is, what if I grow too big? Well, try to break it, right? It's way more fun to try to break something when you're being successful than when you suck at it and don't have nobody coming to your door and like, whenever your next project's coming from or your next sales coming from, whatever. So it's a whole lot more fun. It's still frustrating, right? But I think that was kind of thing is like, and that never ends for some of us. For me, that never ends. I'm always wondering how I can break stuff. I've gotten better at learning what not to break. But I also am not afraid of it, right? I think for a lot of us, we're afraid of breaking sales because what happens if I need to hire someone? Well, then hire someone. Well, what if I don't, what if I don't make any money? Well, figure out what you can do, make money on, raise your prices till people stop buying, right? Whatever it is.
So that type of mentality, maybe we call it the ready, fire, aim mentality, where you move fast and break stuff. I mean, certainly there's a certain percentage of entrepreneurs that are just wired that way and more just, I guess, prone to just act first and maybe think about the consequences later.
I'm laughing hysterically. It's true.
Yeah. I mean, dude, that's been your approach to your whole career, it sounds like.
It's definitely has been. But at least in my case, that ready, fire, aim approach isn't an act. There's a lot of thinking, a lot of wondering behind the scenes going, how can I do this? Can you think about can you anticipate the problems going in? Like, I know going into projects where stuff's going to break, right? So that's part of it, is like understanding your weaknesses, your team's weaknesses, whatever you're selling or whatever you're doing, understanding those weaknesses. Because this is, I think, the biggest differentiator. If a lot of people say, well, I can't do that because I don't have the people. But if you understand how to get it done and you partner with the client saying, listen, I can do this for you, And it normally would take me 2 weeks, but I'm going to need 4 weeks because I have this gap in my process and I know I need to do it. I'm going to need a week to fix that. And if you tell them that up front and you're fair about it and you are a good communicator, my experience is 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, I like, because people buy from people they trust. I like that you see that because I also see that gap in the process. That's why I'm coming to you instead of me, because I don't have those people either, or that process or that product or whatever. I'll wait the week as long as as long as you can do it. Now, don't take on stuff you can't do. If you need to buy $100,000 piece of equipment and you have no way to get that $100,000 piece of equipment and you can't rent it or borrow it or barter it, then maybe that's not the case. But know going that, but know where your gaps are, right? Not just random. Elon Musk doesn't just do things because he thinks like, we're going to do this. No, he has an idea of how it's going to happen. He doesn't know how long it's going to take or what it's going to take to do that, but they know generally that they can do it. Like if I told you I was going to open up a surgery center, my friends will look at me like nuts because I don't know the first thing about medical. I'm not a doctor. I don't know anything about that. That's insane. But other things about it, you certainly could do that. But ready, fire, aim's a thing. But don't let it stop you from doing something. But understand that it does backfire too. By the way, sometimes it backfires. Things are out of your control, right? So,
sure. And another topic we touched on before the show too, which kind of lines with that topic, is you at one point had a challenge getting ready to get ready.
Oh yeah, I don't know where I got that term from. So especially if you're a solopreneur, small business, couple people, right? So there's this idea of like, I keep getting ready. I'll take this course. That was a big thing. 10, 12 years ago, I was coaching people. I was like, oh, this is great. I'll take this. I'll get certified in that. I'll do this. I'll do that. No, just do it. Because what happens is, and we talked about it before, we have this there's something that holds us back that says, well, what if I go all in and I prepare and nobody buys my stuff or no one takes my course or no one does my program? Am I a failure? Well, you have to understand why it's not working. One is because you spend all your time getting ready to get ready. Just talk to people. Just say, hey, this is what I do. Let your customers or your colleagues or your friends or your prospects help determine if your product or service is going to come to fruition, right? Right now, I'm kind of known as I live and die by having tech-enabled virtual teams. That's our MVP Team Pro business. We help companies use teams, remote teams, mostly in the Philippines, a little bit in South America and some in the US, get more stuff done, right? So if they're in the home services business and they're not answering the phone, hey, I got a guy. We have people that are trained to do that, help you do that. Oh, you're not doing follow-ups. Boom, boom. Like, so that for me was this gap because a lot of entrepreneurs says, well, I can't do that. I don't have people. Well, if we can help you identify where these are and they're consistent enough, let's find other people to do that are qualified, that may be in the US, maybe not. Excuse my French, but wages are incredibly high, but they're not, we have these, government mandated wage increases that, I guess they seem to make sense in some ways, but the laws of supply and demand don't change. So if you artificially, create a supply constriction because of a wage hike, the laws of supply and demand says those wages are going to go somewhere else. Now they may be to another state, they may be to another market, they may be to another customer, but that's just the nature of those laws. And so take advantage of those. But you can't really think about. I forget where I'm kind of on a post caffeinated roll here. But you don't. But that's a good problem to have because you're actually acting and not thinking about it. How's that? Right? Time to act and not think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so you had the side hustle that turns into a much bigger business. You sell that company, and then what happens next?
I decided to become a real estate investor in Naples, where I live. Great idea. Then 2008, 2010 comes. Not such a great idea because the world ended. So I wasn't a real estate. I was a really good real estate investor for a while, and then I really sucked at it because the world ended as we knew it. And then from then I just basically, I was forced to reinvent myself, and I went back to my roots, which is I know how to help people sell stuff. So either as a consultant or as a support service or as a marketing person, we all have these fallback tendencies. You probably have them too, right? Where we have these fallback skills that help us do that. And so that gets you through. And then I really, about 6 or 7 years ago, I guess was 2017. So it's probably 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. A light went off in my head. I need to help more people, which has kind of always been my goal. They always need help getting sales and marketing support done. And so I started venturing down the road of doing more of that and then getting other people to fulfill it. And then my wife said to me at an event, we were at a big marketing event, and they said, my wife goes, you can't go in a circle. We were somewhat successful. It was kind of, we would get a couple clients. I would break stuff. I would reinvent things. I would kind of get in this cycle. And she's like, you need to go to that room and join this mastermind. That was in a Dan Kennedy group called Peak Performers. And that changed my life. Literally being in a group of smart entrepreneurs who were at all stages, from startups to guys running $100 million businesses, sharing and holding you accountable to your ideas and telling you that's a good idea or not. And not because they like you or don't like you. Your friends all tell you it's a great idea, or they don't understand it, or your family, everyone's baby's beautiful. But these other entrepreneurs are going to say, yeah, would you like permission for me to tell you to shoot your idea down because it's a really crappy idea, right? Kind of stuff. So being around smart people, I think, is the other part of it, is that you have to surround yourself with, incredibly smart people, and they're probably not sitting in your living room getting ready to they're not watching your course on whatever that you got for $47. That was originally $10,000 2 years ago. Now it's on sale for $47, and it's only 400 hours of stuff that you're never going to implement.
Yeah. Yeah. So the mastermind group, we hear so much about those, and there's a lot of them out there, but like you said, this one was life changing for you. So what about that do you think made such a big difference? Was it just the intimacy of the group and having direct connection to these successful people?
So the group at the time was pretty big, about 50 people. I think part of it was this was the Dan Kennedy group. Dan's now part of Russell Brunson's magnetic marketing organization. And so what tied us together was this belief in a certain style of marketing and a certain mindset of success, right? So we were people that we would go to these events and we would learn the new, some guy would be on stage saying, here's the greatest way to do this, or here's the greatest way to do that, and here's the greatest way to this. And Dan would always tell you, as he called himself a renegade, he would say, don't do 100 things, pick one thing and implement it like crazy, and then decide if it's going to work or not going to work. And if it doesn't work, kick it to the curb and go on to the next one. And so when I was in that group, I learned very much so to understand I had certain gifts that I was holding back. Great. I also had certain things that I thought I was really good at that I really sucked at, and I needed to let them go. And the third thing, which was the most important, was the people that win at business the most get the most done. They always, there's an old saying that says, if you want to get anything done, go to the busiest guy in town. These people that I know, run these incredible businesses that they're working. I mean, they're not killing themselves working wise, but they're always they're learning how to get across the finish line and then see if it works. They're always trying new ad campaigns. They're always trying new marketing techniques. They're always talking about hiring people. I'm sure they fire people too, right? But they're always implementing something, because the people that relentlessly implement something are the ones that are always kind of rising to the top, right? So that was the big takeaway, was I was too busy getting ready and I wasn't implementing. And once I started implementing, like, I'm just doing this and I'll figure it out as I go, life changed, right? Because then all of a sudden I was the go-to guy. Hey, Bryan, I need your help with this. I need your help with that. So that's why we've kind of gotten this small customer segment, but lots of touches. 3 customers, we probably do 100 things a month for 3 customers. That's a lot of stuff that gets done, and they don't even know what's going on, but we just know we're an integral part of their organization. And so that really helps, because we help them implement. I have a friend of mine who has another mastermind group that I'm a part of. He says, if you don't implement, you'll never profit. So that's kind of the next, the previous part of stop getting ready to get ready. Okay, what's next? You got to implement, because if you don't implement, you're never gonna profit, right? So
do you see that as like the biggest obstacle for the entrepreneurs that you work with is
I think
not
the biggest problem with entrepreneurs that I don't know is that they're too busy thinking about something and not busy doing it, right? So if it's if you think about you and I, I'm sure you and I, people in your community that are in let's say they're a home service business. Every town, someone in your world's a carpet cleaner, someone is a realtor, someone is an insurance agent, and they all talk about, well, hey, I get my business from referrals. And then my answer is, well, what's your referral system look like? How many referrals did you get last month? How many referrals are you going to get next month? How many referrals are you going to get 3 months from now? What's the average value of that referral? And then they go, oh, I don't really have a system. I just kind of hope that the phone rings. So there's a difference between having a referral system that's been implemented that you do even when you don't have time, and I hope the phone rings, right? A lot of times, a lot of companies sitting around, well, we've been in business for 50 years. Well, great. How long have you been profitable for 50 years? How many companies have you bought? So does that answer your question? I And I feel like
Yeah,
I'm
it
circling.
sounds, yeah, like you said, the lack of implementing, getting ready to get ready, and just not taking the actions to really even see if something's a good idea or not. And that's really going to be your best feedback is like the results.
Yeah, someone asked me this, just one of my team members asked me this. It says, "Why do you go to these events?" I go, "Sometimes I go because my customers are there. Great, great place to hang out. Sometimes I go because it's an industry I'm interested in, either personally, professionally, or whatever. And I don't know anything about it. So now that COVID's over, right, we're back to going to in-person events. Find events with like-minded people, right? So if you're in a certain industry or trade, go to those. Maybe there's a certain, I'm a Tony Robbins guy. I kind of fell into that niche. Go to a Tony Robbins event or not if you don't like him, whatever. Find something that is suitable to where you are in your life and where you want to go. Because you're gonna find yourself surrounded by, like, again, back to my Dan Kennedy thing. They were all like, we call it Planet Dan. It's a little crazy. We're all Planet Dan people. We all get what Planet Dan does. And as Dan, he got sick and had some health challenges and isn't as active as he used to be, but he wants his teachings to continue on. And it's happening at some real high levels. If you follow people like Alex Hormozy or Frank Kern or, Russell Brunson or some of these other guys, he was taught by Dan directly. Now there's the secondary and third tier people that are teaching Dan's teachings that weren't taught by Dan directly. Right. So, but the reality of it is that, they go to events, they learn people, they try stuff, and they try different stuff, right? So if you don't try different stuff, you're just gonna be doing the same stuff everyone else is doing. And then you're finding yourself in that, what do they call it, the red ocean, right? Where you're with the same ocean as everybody else.
Yeah. Okay. And along the way, you wrote, is it 2 books?
So I wrote one book. I wrote a book called Stuck on First, The 9 Positions of a Playoff Ready Business. Talks about how to build and scale your business. I tie, hence the MVP Inner Circle, the MVP Team Pro, everything is tied to business and baseball. I kind of, when I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go, I had a client who called himself a first base coach because he's like, I got to get on base. And that was his great thing. He was a great idea guy. He could never get anybody across the plate. So I was like, hey, at the time I called myself, well, I'm the third base coach because I want to make sure you get home, because the only way it matters is if you score runs. No one cares about how many hits you got. They care about how many times you got across the plate. So that kind of got me started about the book. And then Tony talked about, is your business stuck on first? I talk about it in the book. Literally, I'm at an event, I'm in the third row, and I'm staring at this big giant guy going, and he curses like crazy. If you're not doing something in your business, you're stuck on first. And I'm going, oh my God. That was my whole thing. So I wrote my book about it. It's going on 7 years, I think 7 or 8 years now. And it's been it's a great tool. It's an easy read. There's typos in it. It's not perfect, but it's about how to build and scale the business that makes sense to you, right? Because my wife has a business where it's her and assistant. I've got a team. She wants nothing to do with having a team. I want nothing to do with me and an assistant, right? So every business has different, every has different needs or what that scale is. So it kind of talks about that. And then it really talks about the importance of systems. And I didn't know this at the time when I built my business. We built systems. I didn't know they were systems. It was just pain relief. We were scanning pieces of paper, right? We had 7 processes that, from the box getting picked up to going back in the warehouse, we had 7 things that had to happen in order for the customer to view it. Everything had between, I don't know, 3, 5, or 7 steps at each level of process, and we could check every way along the way. That's how we scaled, because people learned how to do it, and then they learned how to figure out where the mistakes were. So at the time, I didn't know it was some great thing to do. I probably should have packaged it and sold it as a course. And at the time, I probably could have sold it for $25,000 a pop or something. But it was just pain relief to me. It was just literally like, how do I not feel the pain from selling a product that people wanted to buy? So, but the book part was great. Is great. And we use books a lot in the Dan Kennedy world as a lead magnet or as a competitive advantage or whatever. If you haven't written a book, don't fry. If you have a favorite book that you like, share that with a client and send it with your next proposal, and you'll see how much better of a job you'll get on closing rates if you send them some book along with a printed copy of your proposal in a FedEx package. Can't do that for a $300 job, but you can do it for a $10,000 job.
So. Sure. All right. So you when you had the idea to write the book, like you said, you just did it. There's typos in it. How long did it take you to get the book written from when you had the idea?
So I wrote it twice. I wrote the first book, and my wife read it and said, "This isn't what you're trying to say. This is terrible." So okay, I went back and rewrote it. It took me about 6 or 7 weeks to write the book, to get into its basic form. I probably could have done it today. I could probably do it in about 30 days. I then handed it to an editor to kind of clean up the thoughts, because I'm not a professional writer. And at the time, I just used a professional editor from Upwork, and said I hired a retired or semi-retired university professor who was just looking to edit books. And she said, "Bryan, I like this. I don't like this. This doesn't make sense. This should go here. This should go there." So they call them developmental editors. And so I hired her to like help me develop it. And then I took it across the finish line myself. I self-published it on Amazon. I hired an artist to do a book cover. I hired a layout person to do the layout for me. I'm not a bestseller. I've probably sold 100 books on Amazon in the last 7 years, and I don't care, but it's done probably close to 7 figures of consulting, and certainly done 7 figures of work over that time, just because of people that have gotten my book as a part of my sales process, right? So being a bestseller is just it's a vanity metric, right? I can be a bestseller tomorrow. I could just hire a bunch of people, give them $10 a piece to buy my book on Tuesday at 2 o'clock. And, you can be a bestseller. It's fabricated. They call it fabricated celebrity. You can do that now. But the fact that you have it, you wrote it, is a fantastic experience. And if anyone has a chance to do it, it's so cool. It's such a cool process to do.
Yeah. And I love, like you said, just get it done, right? You wrote it, you made mistakes, you hired people, you figured it out, you put it out there, and then not getting caught up in the vanity metrics, but like it turned into real business, right? Real clients, real money, even if you're not quote a bestseller. I mean, that's what it's about for an entrepreneur, is how is it going to benefit your business?
Absolutely. And for me, right, that was kind of the key. Dan Kennedy taught us that was one of the keys, as a basically, being a category of one. If you wrote a book and you're a consultant or you provide services to companies, you're going to be in a category of one. Everyone else is going to be fighting on price, and they're going to have the book on your bookshelf. And Dave and I are on video as you're listening to this. I still have people I talked to 5 years ago that says, "Bryan, I still have your book. I still have your book." I'm like, people throw away. Someone did a study on this. People don't throw away books typically. A newsletter or another print magazine that's more than 4 pages, they'll keep for 3 to 4 months. A letter they'll keep a month or two, or go in the garbage. A postcard they'll keep for a week or two, and an email they'll look at it for like 3 seconds. Which category? Which place do you want to be in? I know where I want to be. So
Okay. And also along the way, you started a podcast.
I started a podcast just like Dave's, although we serve a different audience. I started a podcast with an idea called it's called the Driveway Marketing Podcast. There's only about 20 episodes. I got called out on Friday because I did like 7 or 8, and then of course I stopped because it was making business turn and stuff like that. And I, of course, like any good entrepreneur that has some success, I stopped doing what works. So he called me out on it. So I did 5 on Saturday anyway. Yeah, it's a great experience. Our purpose on that podcast is to help people in the home services industry. It's one of the niches we serve, because we have an offer for them, right? We can help them do less and grow without having to do so much of the heavy lifting. But also, my wife and I own a home services business. My wife and I own an interior design business. And so a lot of the same techniques, that I teach, that I share, that we do, she does too. And so we see the direct results from the doing and not thinking about it. So that part of it's kind of cool. And obviously, as no one's moving out of their houses. Nobody's, the trades are in massive demand. The home services niche isn't going away. It's AI. In my mind, it's AI proof. You're not going to, no plumber's going to get AI'd out, right? So no carpenter, no carpet cleaner is going to get AI'd out. So I think there's a long-term play as an investor in the business. And they're still going to need support. Now, I think our role as a sales support is going to change over time. But I can tell you from experience that people that spend lots of money on ads, they don't answer their phones or answer their emails, and they wonder why their ads aren't working. Number one complaint from marketing agencies is that you don't follow up on the leads, because companies want job booking services and marketing agencies provide leads. They're not the same thing. Leads are opportunities and sales is sales. Someone's got to close the gap. And usually they're just looking for someone to respond to them. Most companies don't respond. 80% of companies don't pick up the phone that they list on their Google My Business profile. That's a
Wow.
real
80%.
80%. I called, so this is based on our own, this is not a study. This is what I paid for. We called 4,000 people in 3 states in like 4 home services niches. And only 18% actually picked up their phone. So it's less than that. So 82% didn't answer the phone. Of the people that answer the phone, only like 15% could provide us information directly right there. And a lot of times it was just an answering service to call back, which I give them credit. They did at least do the callback, right? So they did answer the phone, but 80%. So they paid for that traffic. Think about that. They paid for the ad. They paid for someone to put their phone number listing in, plumber near me, carpet cleaning near me. Someone put it, or they did it themselves. So they're generating traffic, but they didn't bother to pick up the phone. Another thing was crazy. Of some of the people that didn't pick up the phone, I want to say like a third of them didn't even have a way to leave a voicemail message. So imagine that. You're going to have people call. Now, there may be technical reasons why that happened. Like they hired an agency and the agency turned off something or whatever. But imagine you can't even leave a message. And so I talked to my friends, like my personal friends who are in the business, and they're going, well, yeah, I don't do that because it's a giant pain in the butt because all I get are spam calls. I'm like, but the customers call too, right? Don't customers call? Well, they can fill out my form on my website. I'm like, mom sitting at the soccer field on Saturday isn't going to fill out the form, right? Or at 10 o'clock in the morning at break or whatever. She just wants to call someone, get the carpet cleaned. She wants to call someone and get the house cleaned. Husband says, you got to get the gutters cleaned. There's a storm coming. He's not filling out 3 forms to hope someone emails him back. He's going to call people and see who answers the phone. First one answers the phone. If the price is reasonable, can you book it for Saturday? Absolutely. So it's maddening.
Yeah, and that's another distinction too, right? And I guess the way I look at that too is because I see that in other businesses and in our industry is like thinking with the customer in mind. Like you said, well, they can just fill out the form on my site, but the customer's not going to want to do that. Like you said, if it's soccer mom and Saturday morning, right? So how much missed opportunity is that because entrepreneurs aren't thinking like their customers thinking?
I mean, I have a Vance Morris. I'll give you the link, Dave. You prefer Dave. Hope that's okay. Sorry about that. I'll give you a link. Vance Morris is a friend of mine. He owns a carpet cleaning company in the middle of nowhere in Maryland, and better than 85% of every inbound inquiry for him turns into a paying job, where the industry average is 40% at best. So tell that. And so as a result, he was one of the highest per revenue locations for a national franchise before he decided to go on his own because of that. Because he's like, we're going to always answer the phone. We're always going to answer emails. And then the reason I got into the business is because he's like, Bryan, I've been through my 3rd service in the last year. Can you please do this for me? So we have a dedicated person supporting him during business Monday through Friday and half a day Saturday. So that's to tell there's an opportunity. So his business is hands off. Everyone wants a hands off business. I know for a fact Vance probably spends 4 or 8 hours a week on his carpet cleaning business because he's spending the rest of the time on his consulting business. So he just makes sure that, keeping an eye on things, keeping the team staffed, that kind of stuff is what he does. But he's not cleaning the carpets. He's not booking the jobs. He's not booking the follow-ups. He's got a manager that manages the team. So he's literally outside the business. So now, did it happen overnight? Absolutely not. But he was adamant, like he was always picking up the phone. When the business first started, I'm sure it was his wife. And then then it was him. He would turn off the machine and pull out the old flip phone and answer the phone. Right. I just think it's such a critical. We all thrive for communications and kind of contact and connection, that if you can just do that by answering your phone, even if you don't know the answer or can't talk, just answer the phone and call them back. Right. Hey, I'm going to be on job. I can call you back in 30 minutes. Is this the right number to call you back at? I don't have my schedule in front of me. I'm just finishing up a job with a client. That will be a perfectly acceptable answer. And then you call back 30 minutes later and you're going to get that job 9 times out of 10. It's just nuts. Yeah. It's just, that's like the one thing, just answer. Just go ahead and try to get a project done in your community. Like, I just hope a contractor calls me back. Really? That's who you want to do business with? The only guy that calls you back?
Yeah. Little things that make such a big difference.
In e-commerce, right? How important is it now to have a chat support? I don't want to fill out a form to find out where my stuff is. I want to talk. I may not want to talk to somebody, but I certainly want to chat with somebody. Where's my stuff? Could you tell me? Now, can AI do that? Sure. But can AI get it there all the time? Maybe, maybe not. But at least I can get some immediate feedback. People are looking for, humans are looking for immediate feedback, I think. So,
Yeah. All right. And Bryan, if people want to get in touch with you, learn more about your services, what you do, what's the best way people can do that?
So I think the two best areas, you can obviously go to stuckonfirst.com. If you want to buy a copy of my book that comes from me, I'll send you an autographed copy of the book. It's just a $7 or $8 shipping and handling. The other thing is you can do is if you want to go to mvpinnercircle.com, that basically gives you an outline of the different ways we help people. And then our fulfillment sales support business, you can find at mvpteampro.com. So those are three places you can find Bryan, or you can just Google my name and follow me on LinkedIn. Anyway, any of those ways are perfectly acceptable.
All right. And we'll link all that in the show notes for everyone. All right. Well, Bryan, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Enjoyed our conversation, learning all about your journey. And yeah, we appreciate it, and best of luck to you.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. You guys have an amazing day. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. We will see you next time.